Our top focus on World DNA today, there is relative calm in West Asia after Iran and the United States paused military strikes.
Well, U.S. Ambassador to United Nations Mike Waltz has told Fox News that while American forces remain locked and loaded, President Donald Trump is giving diplomacy and negotiations some room to move forward.
The U.S. refrained from launching strikes for a second consecutive night, while an Iranian military spokesperson said that Tehran had also suspended retaliatory attacks against U.S. interests and allies in the region. The pause follows nearly 2 weeks of daily U.S. strikes and tit-for-tat attacks, which was seen as the largest rekindling of the almost 5-month-old war since an April ceasefire.
However, Trump has shared a series of AI-generated images on his Truth Social platform. The posts may signal that military activity will continue or even increase. In fact, one image shows that the U.S. president is standing on tanker, while another shows fighter jets bombing the Karg Island oil export terminal.
Iran continues to face mounting pressure along its southern coastline, where the U.S. maintains a naval blockade around the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian media on Sunday said that an oil tanker exploded in Hormuz after colliding with a naval mine outside a navigation route that was designated by Iran.
Meanwhile, Iran's allies in Yemen continue to disrupt shipping through the Red Sea. In the latest, the Houthi rebels say that they have downed a Saudi drone over the northwest of Yemen, which is a day after claiming that it attacked oil facilities in the Gulf Kingdom. Footage that has also been released by the Houthis appear to show armed men approaching the burning wreckage of an aircraft.
According to a maritime body overseen by the U.S. Navy, commercial shipping traffic on Hormuz was at a 3-week low, while traffic remained steady through the Bab al-Mandeb.
Despite the tensions and uncertainty that prevails, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson has said that talks with U.S. had made progress and are still on.
However, beyond the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's nuclear program, Lebanon remains another major point of contention. It often has. Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei has said that preserving Lebanon's territorial integrity remains a key condition for ending the war.
The timing of this statement is significantly important. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is due at the White House on Tuesday and is expected to continue to take a tough line on Tehran, which includes its nuclear program. Speaking to Fox News, Netanyahu has warned Iran against any future attacks on Israel. Listen in.
If Iran attacks Israel, either directly or through proxies, either with ballistic missiles or UAVs or killer drones, it will make a terrible mistake, because our response, Israel's response, will be very, very forceful.
To discuss more, we are now being joined by Colonel David B. Roche from Washington, D.C. He's a professor of the Marshall Institute and former Deputy Director for Peacekeeping in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Colonel, welcome to the broadcast yet again. It's a pleasure having you here. For nearly 5 months, this war has swung between strikes and talks. It has repeatedly happened. Now, for the second night in a row, U.S. attacks on Iran have fallen silent. The White House says President Trump is giving diplomacy some space. What do you think is Washington's strategy here?
Oh, well, President Trump doesn't have a strategy. I mean, that much is clear. He's trying different tactics. And I think that when you go down an air power only approach, your options, if you don't achieve your goals immediately, are to either redouble the intensity, expand the geographic scope of attacks, or broaden the target list of attacks. So he's kind of fallen into the trap of air power alone. But why this pause specifically? I think there's a couple reasons. So first off, Friday night, which I thought would be the night that he would intensify attacks, was the night of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. President Trump was the lead speaker there, and I guess he didn't want to step on his own punchline. But President Trump's also very sensitive to markets, and I think that if he were to attack on the weekend, the markets would have a full weekend to figure out what it was going to be, and it would be harder for President Trump to manage their reaction. Whereas if he carries it out when the markets have to immediately react to it, President Trump can spin it a little bit more. I think there's the additional consideration that he is obligated, because he didn't really make the case for going to war to the American people. He is obligated to show that he's giving diplomacy every last chance, primarily because, we have midterm elections coming up, and the war, as you noted, I mean, we're in the 5th month of a 3-week war. So there's a lot of reasons, but either way, I think that this interregnum will not last for long.
Yes, Colonel, point taken. In fact, I completely concur with you that there seems to be ambiguity with respect to the U.S. strategy going forward. Because on one hand, we see U.S. maintaining its stand that they want diplomacy to take its course. And on the other hand, we see those series of AI-generated images that have been posted by President Trump. But let's also shift focus to Netanyahu's visit to Washington. In your opinion, which are going to be the key sticking points in those talks between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, apart from the stand with respect to Israel's position in southern Lebanon?
Right. So this isn't a scheduled meeting. This isn't a summit. Netanyahu's coming for the funeral of Senator Lindsey Graham. So this is more a target of opportunity. I think that Lebanon will probably be secondary in any discussion if there is a policy discussion. I think the main question will be Israel wants to, their phrase is, finish the job in Iran. In their view, they had Iran on the ropes, and then this ceasefire, the initial MOU-related cessation of hostilities, allowed the Iranian regime chances to rebuild and survive to live another day. I think Israel wants to see that regime gone, and they're willing to fight until it is gone. With Lebanon, I think that President Trump will probably urge Netanyahu to get out of there quickly, but quite frankly, I think that he's in agreement with him that the onus is really on the Lebanese army. Israel is conducting active operations against Lebanese Hezbollah. They want to get out of there because their army are reservists. They're needed at home. They have civilian jobs, but they don't want to leave and then have to come back in 3 months or 12 months. So the question is, can the Lebanese army actively police areas that Israel withdraws from and prevent Lebanese Hezbollah from reestablishing itself? I think that at this point, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two. The question is just, is the Lebanese army up to the task? And then they can talk about a withdrawal.
It remains to be seen, of course, what exactly transpires in that meet. But Colonel, also talking about the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, which is still very, very volatile. Let's not forget that an oil tanker had exploded recently in the Strait of Hormuz. And that being said, U.S. constantly maintains that its naval blockade remains in place. What do you make of the present situation in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, it's a good question. So Iran says that they control the Strait of Hormuz. That's not exactly true. I mean, what they can do is they can disrupt neutral civilian shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. They can't say this ship will go through and this ship won't. They can prevent random ships from going through. And most of their power has been directed at neutral civilian ships rather than at warships or ships belonging to the combatants. So that's a disruptive threat. The U.S. naval blockade, I think, will have a pretty powerful effect, in a country that is already suffering record levels of inflation. But it comes with some costs as well. So the U.S. disabled a ship that was part of Iran's shadow fleet that was defying orders to not enter the quarantine zone. And unfortunately, as you know, Indian seafarers are a lot of, yes, are hired for these ships. So one Indian lost his life in that. That's a matter of, that's not a good thing for the United States and India. So there's potential for other things to go off limits there. But in general, it looks as though the naval blockade on Iran is holding. Obviously, economic sanctions on Iran are being redoubled. And usually the pattern is when Iran starts to feel economic pressure, they lash out militarily at America if they can, but usually at neutral civilian ships and shore installations because they can.
You're right, Colonel. 5 months in, and the political destination of this war still remains, and it looks like it is very unclear. So we'll have to see if the meeting between Trump and Netanyahu is going to deliver any fresh results. Thank you for your time and your perspective yet again.
Thank you. It's an honor.